Hi, guys. I don't know if anyone's out there. I still need chapstick, regardless if anyone's out there. But let me start by saying this is not what I thought I was going to be doing tonight. I have been at work since 8:30 in the morning, and I am fortunate enough to love my job. And yes, I didn't think this was going to be my job. I did a little description in my bio, but frankly, I don't think it matters. I am looking at Facebook one more time to see if there's anyone that can't see this that wants to, because I am posting this because I can't stay silent any longer. And if you know me, you know that's true. So let's get comfy, because I said I would be doing shorter pieces so people would listen, but the fact is you're either listening or you're not. So here it goes. As usual, I'm like gorgy from the neck up and then pajamas from all the way down. The topic of today's rather impromptu Facebook Live is how to talk to your kids about suicide. I never thought this was a population I would work with. I never thought I could handle it. I have kids and fears and anxiety, and yet here I am. Now, let me also be very clear about something, especially those of you that don't know me or are new to this. This is not about today. This is not about yesterday. This is not about one family. And I'm not going to make it about one family. For the past 14 months, I have been, by the way, I'm kind of nervous. So if you stop being able to hear me, anyone that is listening, help me out. Send me a little note so I don't F this up. My name is Lindsay Weisner. I'm a clinical psychologist in Long Island, New York, and I specialize in suicidal teens. I fell into this niche about 14 months ago, and it was a total accident. And for personal reasons, I never thought I could handle the pressure. And then it turns out for personal reasons, that is why I can handle the pressure. So this started off with how to talk to your kids, and now it's kind of a whole 8,000 different levels, because the world is sucky and suicide is contagious. And I'm going to try my best not to delve into the statistics of suicide, the contagion aspect. If you have specific questions, type away, and I'm more than happy to answer at the end. But for right now, I think that our community, I think probably your community as well, we need something helpful and hopeful and some sense of direction, because otherwise we're all going to spend, thank you, love, we're all going to spend the next few days, weeks, months living in fear, and we kind of should be, because who is more like copycat than teens? Well, no one, except maybe us PTA moms, but whatever. That was just a joke to see if I can get kicked off the PTA within the first 5 minutes. Okay, how do you talk to your teens about suicide? Well, your kids, I'm going to break it into both. The first thing is, listen, at some point you're going to have to talk to them about sex and the difference between what a boy has and what a girl has, and I don't know, how to ride the subway or the bus or drive a car or cross at the stoplight. But suicide is not something that you have to talk about until you have to. That sounded dumb, but again, not well rehearsed. Been seeing patients since 8:30 in the morning. And frankly, I can't even remember who told me about this latest impetus for this video, because that's how long of a day it's been. So you only discuss suicide with your children or teenagers or even college kids when you have to. What does that mean? Well, if someone has attempted or committed suicide that they know, or if they're going to hear about a suicide event event completion because you live in a small town, or friends of a friend, or if it's going to come out eventually and you would rather be the one to explain it to them, which is kind of also how I view sex. I'd rather be the one to tell them than have them hear all this shit from their bullshit asshole friends. You should also bring up the subject of suicide if you are concerned that your child might be depressed or suicidal. And that's a really tough thing to wrap your brain around because this is your kid. And remember how happy they were when they giggled or learning to walk. To think that they've come this far in not so long is heartbreaking. But one of the best slogans ever, two of the best slogans ever that I would like to co-opt for purpose of suicidal awareness is if you see something, say something. That was a good one. And also, it gets better. But right now they're kids and they don't know that it gets better. And also it gets better and it gets worse. Let's be honest. I mean, Jesus Christ, taxes, who would have thought? Talk about it with your kids. If someone they know has attempted suicide, if you know someone that they know is suicidal, if you know that someone they know is very depressed and they are close to them, talk about it. If you're concerned your child might be depressed or suicidal, talk about it. Someone just sent me a great meme the other day, the gist of which is talking about suicide does not make your kid suicidal the same way talking about llamas does not make your kid a llama. I am totally shortening that, but I think I shared it on one of my pages. The last reason to talk about suicide, not a euphemism, not something might happen, not some sort of passive phrase that implies that there's no control over it, but the word suicide is if you or they are worried about one of their friends. If you are worried about one of your friends, deal with it because you're an adult and you can handle it. If you're worried about their friends and you start seeing things that make you concerned, I'm a big believer in go with your gut. And I'm also a big believer in you have less of a gut when it comes with your kid. So, starting from point one, we are tossing that blame game right out the window. By the way, I just want to point out for those of you that doubted, it's been 7 minutes and I haven't dropped an F-bomb. So how do you talk to your kid about suicide? Be very clear, very clear. Again, no euphemisms. Then again, we're going to go for age appropriateness. So, I went with 0 to 10, 0 to 11. You know your own kid. You don't start the conversation with, do you know anyone who wants to kill themselves? Because then suddenly that kid's not going to sleep all night thinking about that question, particularly if they don't. When you initiate a conversation, be clear. Be clear in why you're bringing it up, why you're concerned, and why now. These are also the guidelines we use to question why someone starts therapy. It's really a why now. That's the most important. And you should explain to your kid why you're bringing this up now because there's a reason. And it may be because you know something that they don't know, or it may be that you saw something on TV or that you're feeling a certain way. It doesn't matter. You don't have to tell them I'm really depressed and thinking about suicide and that's why I'm asking you. But be clear that something is going on and be honest with them because sooner or later they find out you lied because we all lie about something. We almost got caught in the tooth fairy last night. Then we didn't. For example, younger kids. I know this is a difficult subject, but it's important that we talk about this. Have you ever heard the word suicide? Just to be really clear, if you're going to ask this big question, you should be pretty clear that their answer is yes. Yes, they have heard the word. If they don't know what it is, they may not be ready either, chronologically, which means age-wise, or cognitively, which means just where they are mentally, which is not to say they're dumb. It's just that if they've never heard the word suicide and they have no further questions to ask, you're acting on your anxiety. And part of parenting is like wrapping that anxiety up in a bowl and putting it away somewhere. So if you get a no at, have you ever heard of the word suicide? Pause, reverse, back away slowly, and go see a therapist about it or your best friend or whatever the case is, because it's not your kid that's dealing with this at that point. It's you. Point number 3. Ask questions first. Let me be clear. I am a very well, some would say overtrained clinical psychologist. I have had a lot of schooling, probably for daddy issues, because my dad's a doctor. Who knows? And I am trained to assess a child for developmental issues, where they are cognitively versus chronologically, what they're ready to talk about in theory and on paper. I should know who, what, when, and where. Oh, and how to explain things to your kids, to your teens, to you, to my friends, to my husband, although if you have a husband, you know that doesn't work so well, and to my own kids, and yet I can't. I have a blind spot for my children, and you probably have a blind spot for yours. So be very careful to ask questions before giving information that they may not be ready for. This is kind of the same way we handle sex in our household, like explaining it. It was, when they ask the question, they're ready for the answers and then follow accordingly. If you've got a teenager, they're not going to be honest with you all the time. They probably know more about suicide or suicidal thoughts or just like teen angst, never mind the whole 13 Reasons Why thing. So use your judgment, but also ask questions and try to think about what you were like as a teen and what you knew, and then multiply it by 50, because these kids somehow know so much more than we do. So from 0 to 10 or 11, you can ask questions like, well, what do you know about the word suicide? Do you remember who you heard it from? With older kids, ask them directly. Like, do you know anyone that's depressed? Do you know anyone that might be thinking about suicide? Have you ever heard someone talk about or threaten or, contemplate suicide? Suicide is different than self-harm. Self-harm being cutting, sometimes bulimia or anorexia or excessive use of drugs or alcohol can also fall into that self-harm category. But ask them both. If they don't know what one of the word means, thank you, Dawn. If they don't know what one of these words mean, then define it in a way that seems appropriate, or ask them what they think. We're trying to lead a discussion, but we're trying to lead it from a level that they can react at and a level that doesn't make them more anxious, nervous, afraid, depressed than they were before. That being said, there is very little you can say to someone who is clinically depressed in the long term that will make them more depressed. That's just not how it works. And also we'll get back to that. Also, if you think your kid is depressed, ask them, are you depressed? Are you sad more than you should be? Do you find that your reaction in terms of frustration and sadness and anxiety don't really match up after the fact with what you should be thinking of or with how other people might feel? It's not about a peer competition. It's about kids are smart. Even the dumbest kids are smart. And I'm sorry, but they're dumb kids. But nonetheless, like, ask your kid, because they probably have an idea. They probably don't know what to do with the feelings, but they have an idea that there's something disproportionate. So ask them if they've ever thought of suicide. And then hold your breath and wait for the answer. Because here it goes. Some of them have. I am 42 years old, and I had no idea what self-harm was. And yet, in retrospect, I remember there were girls that were cutting like boys' names into their legs with razor blades. And honestly, where the hell were they getting? Hell isn't an F-bomb. I'm still on count. Where were they getting these razor blades from, or this idea from? I don't know. But there is something that was and remains true about wanting to bring the pain you feel on the inside to the outside so that someone will acknowledge it. We're all dying for someone to help us. We just don't know how to explain it and convey it. And teens are worse than we are at it. If as an adult I can't come home and be like, I need 10 minutes without my children, please, then they don't know how to do this either. So ask them if they've ever thought of suicide, and take a deep breath and be prepared for the answer, and then pause before responding. So There is a difference between thoughts and feelings and actions. And here is why I'm very good at my job, if I do say so myself. I have spent a lot of my life dealing with people that thought about suicide, people that tried to attempt suicide, people that succeeded in attempting suicide. I know it sounds like I lived a weird ass life, but really, damn. 15 minutes and 30 seconds, Ivy. That's the answer. I grew up in Boca Raton, Florida. It's a town a lot like Hewlett. It's just colder, and we like pink and blue a lot more than you guys do. So other than that, same thing. Someone can have thoughts about suicide. Someone can have feelings about depression. The difference is taking an action, taking or planning or intending an action. You, as a parent, sometimes need to take a step back. And let me tell you, it is impossible when it's your kid. It is so tough. But part of what we do in our professional lives is react less, but express interest and concern in what our child, teenager, friend, lover, partner, parent is going through. Ask questions. Don't panic. Keep collecting information. I have met with a lot of patients, teen patients, who came in for depression, secretly expressed some thoughts about suicide, what we would technically term suicidal ideation, which basically just means having ideas about suicide. And then when I actually paused to ask questions, which, by the way, took me many years to pause without flipping out and looking for like an emergency, fire alarm switch. When we actually pause to ask questions, it turns out they do have thoughts about suicide or about not wanting to live, but the thoughts are like, well, I wish I would just die. Or what if I was walking down the street and I got hit by a car? These thoughts are awful and painful to think about anyone's child going through, never mind yours. But most people don't walk down the street and suddenly get hit by a car. And when it happens, we're all like scared shadoodleless. I'm going to make it last a little longer without really dropping words. We're all really scared when like that taxi suddenly veers onto the street in Manhattan and kills someone. But I'm willing to bet that the odds are that that person was not looking to die. It was just wrong timing, wrong place. If a child or an adult is expressing thoughts or ideas about wanting to die, and yet the thought is so passive or so far-fetched or so like, well, what if a nuclear bomb exploded in my bed? I think you should get them to therapy because they're expressing thoughts and feelings. But there is less concern for me as a therapist about them actually committing suicide. Side note, especially with teenagers, I'm open to recommending medication. Why? Personal and professional reasons. And also it takes a long time for medication to kick in. And also, everything you think you know about how medication works is probably not correct. Why? You're not a doctor. You're a person who gets influenced the same way the rest of us get influenced by politics and fake news or real news or whatever news channel you listen to. If you want to know how medication works, ask a doctor. Ask a psychologist. Most of us don't understand exactly how it works, but we kind of do. And if you want to ask me, reach out. I'm happy to explain it to you. I have some great analogies because, again, I think I've been slowly sliding into the suicidal specialty for several years, and now it's where I belong, which is why it's 9:00 at night and I'm talking your heads off instead of being in my bed and probably watching crap TV, although I honestly don't have a lot of time to watch TV today. These days, I have a lot of stuff going on, and also, to be perfectly honest, there is nowhere else I would rather be than talking to you about suicide, and it doesn't matter if there's 10 people or 20 people or 100 people listening. I fell into this specialty, and this is where I'm meant to be, and I'll stop talking about me now. So, pretend you're Lindsay and like super crazy. Stop, Dawn. This is what I love doing. I'm glad that you're listening. I'm super crazy and also kind of super calm because life has been so chaotic in general. And so I don't panic over a teen telling me these thoughts. I actually have had more panic preparing all these papers because I wanted to sound bright and together. And mostly I wanted to not talk about an individual incident. We've had a bunch of them around here. I don't want to talk about any one individual incident because we're honestly just pretending that we know what is going on. And also, we've got evil motives for that, but that comes towards the end. So you have to make it towards the end. So, number 5, and I know no one else is counting besides me. And that's just so I can keep this all straight because I have so much to say. Be open to the possibility that your kid may need help. Your kid may be depressed. Your kid may be suicidal. And your kid may know someone who does need help, who is suicidal. And ready for this? This is huge. I don't know if you can handle it. It's no one's fault. I have a whole tirade on that later. But don't you dare for a minute think that a depressed child is your fault. Or a suicidal child is your fault. Like, unless you're beating the shit. See? Done. Broke the seal. Unless you are beating the shit out of your kid or berating them every day or remember that family where there are like 8 kids living in a box or a house and chained up? Yeah, those kids get to be depressed, possibly suicidal, but I don't think any of them have committed suicide. I think that you have to be open to the fact that your kid may need help. And if they do, it's no one's fault. And even if it is someone's fault, what are you going to do now? There's a hole in the boat. Who are you going to blame? And why do you need to blame someone? Just let's fix the boat. Fix it together. Okay, here's where it gets tricky. So I know that because I can see those of you that are joining, and I know that some of you are familiar with borderline personality disorder, which actually does not have as many, it has many suicide attempts. It does not have any completions, thank God. It's just a diagnosis. It doesn't make a difference. I give diagnoses because I need them for the insurance companies, and we try to conceptualize things. But there's a joke. I know it's sad to think it's a joke, but there's something I learned in grad school and beyond, which is that there's no punchline to the joke, but it's like, what's the difference between a borderline and a teenager? And the answer is not much. And so, similarly, what's the difference between the symptoms of PMS and pregnancy? I'm waiting for someone to answer. No one will. Not much. There is not much difference. I have this conversation all the time with women that are struggling with infertility and or with teen girls that are fearing pregnancy. And the answer is, God, there's not much difference. I mean, sorry, boys, but it's like, hormonal changes, big boobs. Sometimes there's a little bit of spotting. If you look it up, it's like, it's a cruel joke. And the same goes for what's the difference between a suicidal or depressed teen and a teenager. I had some thoughts of my own, but just to do my due diligence, I did look up possible signs of suicidality online and I think I looked it up at the NIH website or one of the similar websites, and I was amused. I get to be amused because if I didn't, I couldn't do this. I am not saying that suicide or thoughts of suicide or a severely depressed kid or even a mildly depressed kid are amusing. I am just saying that we need something to get us through today. We need something to get us through the last 14 months. And we need someone to some sort of information to open our eyes, which is why I've neglected my kids and my husband for the last 2 hours and tried to put together something that I thought would help. And if it does, fantastic. And if it doesn't, I'm sorry. And reach out to me and I will be more than happy to point you out to different and better and smarter resources than I am. I feel passionately about this, and dear God, if you follow me on any of my social media, you know how annoyingly passionate I feel. But if you need something else, if you need someone better, please reach out to me and I will connect you with the right people. Because for me, I have been dealing with this all my life to some degree or another. Clarification, I have never been suicidal. I'm sure I've been depressed, but I have never been suicidal. And yet I have been surrounded often by people who are. And so I get to make jokes, not at death and not at suicidal teens, but something to get me through the day. And if that's what you need to do, go for it. And maybe that's what your teen needs to do too, just to laugh once in a while. Laughter results in endorphins, happy hormones, etc. So there you go. I don't know what to say, Bobby Ball. I don't know what that means. Do you love me? Do you hate me? Oh, I think you're angry with me. All right. Oh, you meant to say loser, but you said lose it, Loset. If you could clarify, that would be great, because I am talking about something serious. Show my feet. I'll show you my feet. I'm in slippers. But for now, let's get back to this. So, possible signs of suicidal ideation, suicide depression, apathy, physical pain. By the way, that feet thing is weird, whatever. Apathy. Show me a teen that's not apathetic about something or other. Physical pain. Yes, I do hate when physicians run out of answers and instead they decide that someone has fibromyalgia and is like, should you see a psychologist or a psychiatrist? Nonetheless, I appreciate the referral, but fuck you for not listening to what the kid's really saying, which is that I am in physical, emotional pain, and the only way you'll listen is if I describe it as physical, because that's how I feel it. Trouble concentrating, trouble making decisions. Okay, I'm going to talk about this because I've been really excited about this because I've been writing about this lately, and so I really kind of, sort of, if there's no medical personnel present, I am a great person to explain the problem with the teenage brain and why your brain is really trying to kill you. So, at 11 to 13, your limbic system starts to develop. There's something called a nuclear ambulance. I'm probably messing that up. If Arlen was still here, she could correct me, I'm sure. But basically, your limbic system starts firing all over the place. It's like, we are so excited. We have hormones. We are horny. We are anxious. We are impulsive. We want to try new things. We want immediate gratification. We will not pass that marshmallow test because we want one marshmallow rather than waiting for 3, because that's who we are. So the limbic system is firing all over the place. And meanwhile, it would be great if you had someone to calm you down, because it's kind of like when you go to college and you got that one friend that will keep everyone else in check. We're going to call that Pam, because Pam is your prefrontal cortex. And Pam is responsible for decision-making, executive functioning, weighing the pros and cons, like solid shit. Pam is the one that rips you off the table when you're dancing and possibly ready to strip. I've never done the stripping thing. I've done the dancing on the table. Pam, the prefrontal cortex, is like, it's time to get down here. We got to leave. That guy's sketchy. So the problem is that as part of adolescence, your prefrontal cortex starts developing, and also like your brain and the back starts developing, and you've got these two things trying to meet in the middle. You guys, this is so much more helpful to explain this on a video than in a book or on a podcast, so thank you. So back here, you've got the limbic system going, give me shit, and in here, it's the prefrontal cortex going, I'm working on decision making, and I don't think you should go home with that sketchy guy in the corner, and they need to meet. And the two don't actually fully come together until the age of 21 to 25, which sucks. And here's the problem. You need that limbic system to encourage you to try new things, move out of your parents' house, like not be a degenerate, and be bold and brave and do stuff with the world. But what you do, whether it be like footloose, like riding on the top of a car, I'm old. I've already said it. Or hang gliding, or, drunk driving, whatever it is, drunk driving. None of these things I'm encouraging, by the way. Footloose is a good movie, but don't do that car thing. It sort of depends on your ability to weigh the consequences of your actions. And teens don't have it yet. And in fact, you don't have it in your 20s fully. And if you had fun in your 20s, you can vouch me on this. And if you're alive and you had fun in your 20s, you can also vouch for me on this. So, teens, who was angry at me? That's weird. Bobby, is that you again? I don't even know who you are. I just know that you said, lose it, show your feet. So if you are, you're not supposed to make good decisions as a teen. You're just supposed to do the best you can with the guidance that you have. Irresponsible behavior is another sign of suicidality. We're back to square one. This is my favorite. So signs of depression include weight loss or weight gain, a change in sleep, either sleeping more or sleeping less, and a change in your eating habits. Can we be fucking honest? Like, it's sort of like you're walking a tightrope. So in order for you not to have signs of suicidality, you can't gain weight, you can't lose weight, you can't sleep more, you can't sleep less, and you really just have to walk that fine line and do nothing. Meanwhile, we are depriving our children of sleep. I know, school system, yada, yada, parents, but also like all these activities. And when I'm tired and when my husband's tired, he needs a fucking nap. And like, so do the kids. So is that suicidality and depression, or is it just human beings need to take care of themselves and stop to review, halt, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. If you're feeling anxious or depressed, pause and think about these things. Am I hungry? Hunger includes, have I had enough water today? Am I angry and I'm expressing this through sadness? Especially if you're a woman, we're kind of trained to do this. Am I lonely? We can be lonely. I think men, it's like a worse thing, so they're more likely to express that in terms of depression or anxiety. And then tired, we're all fucking overwhelmed. Ivy, I have given up, and I apologize. So, if you or your teen is experiencing these things, please go through HALT with them. It's something they could learn. Other signs of suicidality or depression. Sadness, I know you're shocked. Withdrawal, that I kind of support. A preoccupation with death or dying. So when we were in high school, I feel like there was that whole goth thing. And so would we have counted, were we all depressed? I was not goth. I didn't have the energy to be anything really, but, or the time or the wherewithal or the, I had bigger things to worry about than whether I was goth or cheerleader or whatever. I was none of the above. Preoccupation with death and dying. Yeah, if your kid starts talking about that, be a little concerned. Ask questions. Another thing is, and I put this in such shitty short terms because it's vague. If you or your spouse has a family history of crazy, I don't mean like crazy. I mean like if someone in your family has a history of being anxious, depressed, having some sort of diagnosis that goes beyond, whatever, you'll know it when you see it. I don't even need to. If it's there, you know it, unless you're in denial, in which case talk to your husband and ask him, or talk to your wife and ask her. Obviously, if you are not a heterosexual couple and you both did not devote biomaterial, I don't know what you call it, to this child, you are less likely to pass this on, but I still think there's an environmental influence. So think about where you come from and who you come from and who your family comes from or your spouse comes from and their family. And you can look it up. Often there's a huge correlation. I am trying to stay away from stats because what I want to do is give us something to hold on to and feel better about tomorrow. I don't care who you are or where you live. As parents, we need this. Dear God, I need this today. I needed this a couple months ago. I needed this a year ago. And so here's what I've got. And I hope it helps. By the way, the last suicidal ideation, like sign, things to look for in your kid, is essentially sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's not how they said it in the research, but it's like, are they promiscuous? Are they trying drugs or alcohol? Are they going to, I think I made up the rock and roll, but the point is as parents, it's tough to tell how much of this is what a kid is supposed to go through in order to establish independence. Recall the whole limbic system thing. And what is something more? Go with your gut, and if you don't think your gut is right, or if you doubt your gut, go with someone else's. Ask someone. Ask your spouse, ask your best friend, ask your worst enemy, ask someone who will tell you the truth. So yeah, I made a couple jokes there because it's been a sad day, and it's been a sad few days. It's been a sad 14 months around here. And if you're from here, you know what I'm talking about. And if you're not from here, you probably know what I'm talking about too. So I hear you and I feel you, and God, I worry every day. Why do some children or teens act on these erratic emotions and some don't? I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters today. I don't think it matters any more than Bobby Ball asking me to show my feet or doing a typo and calling me a loser. Because today's a shit day. It's a shit day for a lot of us. It's a shit day for a community. And if we had the answer, we would have fixed this problem long ago. I think we should focus on being more aware, of being more supportive, of loving ourselves, loving each other, helping each other. I think that's much more important than why this comes out to some people more than others. And I'm sorry if that offends you or if that's not the answer you're looking for. We can discuss it later. I'm literally 3 chapters into writing a book about teens and suicide, which is why I could pull that whole, prefrontal Pam cortex analogy out of my tushy, because I did it 3 nights ago and I didn't know I'd need to talk about it so soon. But I have answers, I have information, I have statistics, but who the hell is so angry with me? Don't do a Facebook Live. It's a lot of self-consciousness. It's probably Bobby. Anyways, I am happy to give you data. I am happy to give you stats. I am happy to give you reassurance. I am happy to have a phone call, and I am happy to talk on the phone with you. I'm happy to text with you. I will not provide, actual psychological help, because then, God forbid, something happens, I lose my license and I lose the ability to help people that I really want to help. And I don't know what I would do without this outlet in my life. So yeah, I can give you the data of who's more likely. I'm also really interested in internationally what the, I don't know, it's been very exciting looking at the different correlations, but does it make a fucking difference if your kid is suffering? I don't think so. And talking about it right now, today, would seem like a blame game. And I'm not in the mood. It's 9:20 at night, and if you've held on this long, which not many of you have, but I don't blame you. I might be asleep if I weren't talking. I don't know. It's just going to turn into a should've, would've, could've, and honestly, fuck that. Yes. Almost 40 minutes before the F-bomb. So yeah, thank you for hanging in there on this Sunday night. I wanted to keep it short. I vowed to keep everything, all of my Facebook Lives, shorter so that more people will be interested. And then I failed because I have a lot to say, especially today. My heart is broken for children I didn't know. My heart is broken for parents I didn't know. My heart is broken for all of us out there that are still suffering. So I have 2 more topics, and then go to bed and hug your kids and tell me what you need more of. Tell me what you need less of, because obviously this microphone has been hugely powerful for me to voice my thoughts, beliefs, opinions, knowledge to all 7 people who have stuck around. I don't care. I do want to know if Bobby's still here and why he wants to see my feet, though. Okay. Do you have a teenager? Because this part is for them. And a lot of people have reached out to me before the Facebook Live as I was busy researching the shit out of everything, feeding my kids, making like a healthy breakfast quiche that probably doesn't taste so good, but I'll take it. Here is my message to teenagers who are not on Facebook, but if you know a teenager who has a way to put this on, what's it called? Come on, the flickering one, Snapchat. Let me know, and I would love some help. If you are a teenager, if you see something, say something. If you feel something, say something. You know your friends better than we do as adults and sometimes as parents. What's the worst case scenario? You say something. You say something about a friend that you think might be depressed and or suicidal, and they get angry and you lose a friend. And what's the other end of the spectrum? You lose a friend and they get the help that they need. They're pissed at you for telling, but guess what? At that 10-year reunion, they'll figure shit out. So I guess the worst case scenario is you lose a friend not because you betrayed them, but because their problem was bigger than what you can handle and bigger than what they realized. And they don't get help. And they die. And can I tell you something? If that's what happens, it's not your fault. It's just not. We all know someone who we either thought that they were okay or thought they could handle it or couldn't imagine that they did what they did. So I am encouraging you teens to speak up, not because it's the right thing to do, but because odds are the alternative will not matter in 10 years. There are people right now that have watched, purposely or accidentally, this Facebook Live that I have not spoken to since high school to middle school. Maybe haven't thought about, maybe have, but just lost contact. And yet you've stuck in for a few minutes to see what I have to say. And if way back when either you or I were suicidal or depressed and we had chosen to keep our mouths shut, we wouldn't be here today. One of us wouldn't. I wish I had like special effects to make things disappear. But I don't. I just have the reminder to encourage your kid to say something. And now to moms. All right, ladies. My suburban moms out there. My moms that chose to share this and not to share this. My moms that jumped online to that local neighborhood group and expressed sadness and condolences and little prayer emojis, which I think are like cool, but I wish there was like I know there's a GIF, but I like this thing because I'm a Jew, so. And then what do? Oh, it's so awful. But I heard that the parents were fill in the blank. I wish there were a raise your hand button on this. This is normal. This is social psychology. I can't fault you for it. What we do in according to social psychology, we need an out group to make ourselves the in group. And it's fucking scary to be alone. Just like it's fucking scary to imagine that your kid is going to be like the kid that committed suicide. It's scary to imagine that your kid is going to commit suicide like the kid that committed suicide. So what do? Well, we're women, so we've got that covert aggression thing, blame game thing going on. And the next thing you know, on social media, everyone is spreading rumors and stories about how their kid was bullied and the school didn't do anything. Or, well, I heard that fill in the blank with whatever bullshit insulting rumor there is. I don't know the people today. I don't know the people 14 months ago or 6 months ago. I don't know all the people in between. I just don't. But what I know is that the way we choose to protect ourselves is fucked up and destructive to whatever mom is suffering. Because what we do is we say, well, I heard they were abusive. I heard that mother was beating her child. I heard that father was sexually abusive. I heard they neglected them. I don't know who you heard this shit from. And if you did, you fucked up by not saying something before. You fucked up by not getting that kid help. So my thought and the odds are what you're doing is you're trying to find a way to distance yourself from this ever happening to you. And dear Lord, I get it. I'm actually not scared of the coronavirus because I drink whiskey, so it can beat any corona. But I do feel like a lot of the times we try to do anything we can to make ourselves feel falsely protected. Like those masks, do they really prevent anything? And I don't know about the flu shot. Half the people I know that got the flu shot got the flu. It's a farce. It's fake and it's comforting, and it's like an invisible igloo type weird ass ball that people roll down the hill with that we try to use to make ourselves feel safe and to make ourselves feel like we have protected our kids and they are safe and this cannot happen to us. And fuck that. That isolates people who do have kids that are suicidal. That isolates the kids, it isolates the parents, and it's just your way of trying to be like, oh, that could never happen to me because I didn't do X, Y, Z. And let me explain something to you. Good parents lose children. Good parents have children that harm themselves, that harm other people, that are born with a chemical imbalance, or that get sexually abused or physically abused by someone outside the family. Good parents fuck up. One person on here tell me that you haven't made a mistake with your kids. I've probably made 1 million. And fortunately, none of them has resulted in a suicidal attempt or completion. But seriously, find a different way to deal with your fear and anxiety. And don't start posting shit online that you don't understand. Sorry, this upset me. It upset me in September, and it upsets me now. Your kids know more than you do about what that kid went through. Ask them. Don't judge based on your own desire for safety, because I want to feel safe too. I just don't want to feel safe at the expense of another parent or another kid or blaming someone. Show me one parent out there who isn't doing the best we can with what we have at our disposal, whether that be financial, emotional, psychological. I don't know, guys. We're all doing the best we can. And I know that some of you have tuned in here accidentally. And I appreciate it if you've stayed for more than 2 minutes. I just, to wrap it up, because it's late and I've got tears to cry, I think it's important that we start talking about suicide prevention awareness. I think it's important that we start talking about destigmatizing mental health. I have a lot of thoughts, and if you're a friend of mine on Facebook, you've already heard way too much of them, and frankly, today's not the day. I put up a bio because I had to, and because I feel like people who don't know who I am need to know that I'm not a bitchy, whiny, correction. In addition to being a bitchy, whiny woman, I am someone who cares and is qualified, and this is what I do with my life, and this is what I do with my day. So I would rather we work together. If you know someone who has a child that is suffering, I have a friend who taught me this neat little trick. All you do is you reach out to them and say, how can I help? Renee Hanono, I'm giving you credit. You don't listen to this stuff, you're in bed, but let's try to help each other rather than blaming people in an attempt distance ourselves from the sheer terror we feel at not being able to protect our kids, ourselves, our family. You guys have all my information. I had asked beforehand if anyone had any questions. I'm happy to answer them. So I'm also happy to answer them after. I don't like to say this, but suicidal kids are my passion. Suicidal, yeah, mostly teens. Suicidal adults as well. I love you as well. If there's any way I can help you or provide information, I'm happy to do so. I am sorry this took so long, but the more I thought about it, the more I had to say. And I really believe in this. And if you believe in this also, and you're not friends with me and you've somehow found this, please friend me. Please, let's connect on social media and let's see how we can help each other, because I don't think any of us can do this alone, which is sort of how I feel about parenting. The best moments of my parenting life so far have been with some of you ladies that have hopped on for 2 or 3 minutes just to show your support. And that's it. I'll ask if anyone has any questions, but I think there's 6 of you remaining. Meh, I should have stripped. It would have gotten more attention. Just kidding. If you know the family that is suffering, please reach out. Please don't blame, and please don't talk shit behind their back. If you know another family that is suffering, same thing applies. I somehow have ended up with a mission, whereas to be honest, I thought missions were stupid. But now I feel like I want to help. And if you want to help, reach out to me and let's see how we can do this together. Thank you guys. It's Sunday night. It's late. And if you've stayed up so far, you're doing better than my husband or my kids have. Thank you. And please feel free to reach out if there's anything I can do. I'm happy to help, but it's not technically psychological therapy, because then you could sue me and that would be sad. And I don't want that. Thank you guys. Have a good night.